One thing these people had in common was that they know they could do it. They knew they could be more than what they were, and they were willing to put in time and effort to get better. It's amazing to think about what you could do with more skills. So I'd like to tell you a couple of short stories and try to learn something from them. I would like to tell you of two women who each sold the business to Berkshire Hathaway. To me, for many millions of dollars. Both of them started with $2,500, which was a coincidence because it was everything they had in the world. And one of them was a woman who landed in Seattle in 1917. She couldn't speak a word of English and had a tag around her neck. The tag said Fort Dodge, Iowa. The Red Cross got her to Fort Dodge, where she was reunited with her husband, who had come to the country a couple of years earlier. She lived in Fort Dodge for 2 years, and as she put it, she felt like a dummy. She couldn't pick up the language. She couldn't learn a word, and so she and her husband decided to move to Omaha. So they came to Omaha in 1919, and there she found a small colony of Russian Jews. So she started feeling more at home. And then as her oldest daughter went to school, she would come home with her daughter, Frances, and she would teach her mother the words she learned in school that day. This woman, Rose Pumpkin, spent 20 years saving money. First, bringing her siblings over to her mother and father for $50 at a time. She sold used clothing to do it. She had 4 children during this period, and by 1937, after 20 years, she'd saved $2,500. She went to Chicago and bought what she could afford in furniture. Her dream has always been to open a furniture store, and this woman, who had never gone to school one day in her life, had $2,500, but the same spirit that the people in this room had about having a dream and working to accomplish that dream. She built a business, which she told to me in 1983, for approximately $60 million, which did $1.5 billion worth of business last year. The 4th generation is working in that business. This woman, Rose Blumkin, worked for me until she was 103. I'm not saying that she left and then died the next year, but it's a lesson to all of Berkshire's managers that early retirement is risky because you don't know what's going to happen. But Mrs. B, with her 2,500 pounds, is proof that you can tell what's going to happen. One more thing about her, she couldn't read or write. She started a business selling furniture, but she didn't bring anything special to the table. What she did bring, so, was a drive to succeed. She knew she could work harder than anyone else. She cared about her customers. She worked at very low gross margins, but she built an amazing business. I saw another woman do the same thing with only $2,500, and I gave her hundreds of millions of dollars. We'll call him Jack. Lived in the Midwest. He was a pretty good athlete, but didn't like school very much. I'm going to tell you one thing early in the story. Maybe you can figure out who the guy was. The company he built hires more college graduates each year than any other company in the United States. And this fellow was destined for this but did not know it. Jack went to college for a year and then dropped out. He wasn't that interested in school, and the year he dropped out was 1941. When the country became under attack, he went down to the Army Air Force recruiting station and volunteered. They turned him down because he had hay fever. So he went over to the Navy and again volunteered, and they took him and put him on an aircraft carrier. He flew small airplanes during World War II and got 2 distinguished flying crosses from the Navy. Then he came back to the Midwest. So now we've got a young guy. Probably by this time he would be 23 or 24 years old. And the interesting thing is he got back to the Midwest and he actually kind of went from one job to another for a short period, or not such a short period. And he finally became a used car salesman at a Cadillac dealership in St. Louis, Missouri at age 35. Having moved up in the organization, the sales organization, he said to his boss, "Oh, could I go into the car leasing business with you?" The boss said, "Well, if you'll cut your salary in half and you'll come up with $25,000, which he borrowed, we can become partners in a car leasing company." So my friend Jack started at age 35 in the car leasing business, and he had 7 cars. It was pretty slow. In fact, one of the things he did was call whenever the phone rang. He let it ring for 3 or 4 times so people would think that he was very busy answering the phones. And of course, it was the only call he was going to get all day. So his first venture was okay, but it wasn't going to go anywhere. And there's a lesson in this for all of us. At age 40, he decided with 17 vehicles that he was going to compete in the rental car business. So now he's taking on Hertz, Avis National, and people like that who have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cars. And he's got 17 cars. And his cars aren't any different from theirs. I mean, he's buying them from General Motors or Florida Chrysler, and he can't get the airport locations. Those companies have them all sold up, but he was determined that he would offer the customer a different car. But he could offer him friendlier service than they've ever seen. So he started a company. He named it after the battleship that had flown from in the Pacific, which was the USS Enterprise, and he died about a year and a half ago. But when he died, his rent-a-car company, starting with those 17 cars, was worth more than Hertz, Avis, and all the rest of the rental cars put together. The man's name was Jack Taylor, and his son, Andy Taylor, a good friend of mine, runs the business. Now that a grandchild is in the business, they'll probably be a fourth-generation alumnus. So this man in the United States didn't invent artificial intelligence. You know, he didn't do anything that just like Mrs. B selling furniture. Any of us could have entered those businesses. But he lived by the creed of basically delighting his customers, working with people and establishing relationships with them so that they in turn would want to like the customers. He couldn't go out there and take care of every possible rental car, but he learned how to project himself with his attitude toward his fellow man and his desire. You know, to make a friend out of every customer, he managed to take very ordinary cars and turn them into this extraordinary business from virtually nothing. And it illustrates several points. One reason is that you don't always get it right. The first time was perfect. I mean, in the car leasing business, you know, basically, you were competing on the cost of money to finance cars. And it's very hard to delight a customer when you just give them the car and tell them to send you a monthly check for 5 years. And you'll be back at that time. So his talents were wasted in that business. But at the age of 40, with all of that experience behind him, he found a golden key. He took a very ordinary business and turned it into an extraordinary operation, just like Mrs. Rose Pumpkin did with furniture. And he didn't worry about whether the Federal Reserve was going to tighten or ease. He didn't worry about whether the stock market was up or down yesterday. He didn't worry about the things he couldn't change. But he did worry, he did focus on the one thing he couldn't change. And that was the customer's experience. I have seen the one I didn't, the one that got away. Enterprise, I went down to Florida and tried to talk him into selling to Berkshire. But he was smart enough not to do it. Probably the value of the company has quadrupled since I made that visit. But he was smart enough to see that he wouldn't find that business. Henry Ford, as you may know, failed twice before he started the Ford Motor Company in 1903. I mean, the test isn't whether you get the greatest business idea in the world the first time out. The test is whether you keep learning as you go along what your strengths are, what you can do for your customers, and what you can bring, especially to the party. And to do that, you need the education that I know you've received through 10,000 small businesses. But you also need a genuine desire day in and day out to delight the customer. I have never seen a business that delights the customer fail. I mean, what you want is that customer the next day when they think, do I want to rent a car or do I want to buy some furniture? What goes through their mind? You know, it's the place where they've had a great experience. I don't know what I paid for this type of thing. Probably if somebody gave it to me, but for the speed, I will say I have no idea what I paid for or the shirt I'm wearing. But I do know I will remember how I was treated when I bought it. I mean, you long forget about the price, but you never forget whether you had a good experience or a poor experience with a purchase experience. And you'll have a hard time finding a person who has had a wonderful or delightful experience in purchasing anything that isn't going to come back. And similarly, if the memory is of rudeness, indifference, or whatever it may be, they're never going to come back. And as a small business owner and as you grow, you have to be able to not only project that interest in people's well-being but also delight them yourself. But you have to do it through other people. And you won't be able to do it through people who themselves do not feel they're being fairly treated and that their views aren't appropriately considered. So you do have to multiply yourself through other people. And I advise the young people to come to Omaha where we have a lot of classes. The key is certainly that in terms of your personal life, the most important decision you may make is the spouse that most of you will likely have. It's very important to surround yourself with people who are better than you. You are going to move in direction of the people you associate with. So, if you constantly say that I've been enormously lucky in that respect, I mean, I've just had teachers, friends, and a spouse who was a better person. I was, and I had enough sense to learn from these people that life went better if you behaved better yourself. but it took a while. So I advise you to seek out as your partner in business, your life partner, whatever it may be. The people that are examples to you rather than somebody that you think you need to straighten out yourself and simple rules, like that letting customers working. Other people associating with you will cause you to move in a better direction that you might otherwise have. So far in life, it's hard to believe. I mean, they took Rose Pumpkin without her being able to speak a word of English. She couldn't read or write, and they took her to what is now $1.5 billion business. And incidentally, there's been no money put in it since 2500. That's been the total capital paid into the Nebraska furniture market. And I think if you look at Enterprise, I don't know their books the same way, but my guess is that very little equity capital has been added to Enterprise over the years as the business built itself. So I want to tell you that I admire this group enormously. When I met Dr. Mello's class on September 22nd, 8 years ago, I was thrilled, and I admire people who are doing what you have done. You've worked hard at your job, but at the same time, you took on a lot of hard work to further your skills. 99 people graduate, which is an amazing number. And I'm looking at 2,200 people here who I respect. I'm cheering for you, and I can tell you that the best is yet to come. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me in this incredible journey today. I hope you enjoyed the content as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. Remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss any future videos. If you found value in what you've watched, don't hesitate to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Your support means the world to me, and it helps the channel grow. I love reading your comments, so feel free to leave any feedback or suggestions for future videos below. Let's keep the conversation going. Remember, life is an adventure, and on this channel, we're exploring it together. So until next time, keep chasing your dreams and spreading positivity. Stay curious, stay passionate, and always keep learning. Thank you again for being a part of this amazing community. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.